And Jeremy Corbyn, who's the leader of the opposition Labour Party in Britain, today called the retweets abhorrent, dangerous, and a threat to our society. He's talking about the President of the United States. I mean, we have to take a step back. We look at everything that's happened this week that the President's tweeted about. It's only Wednesday. He had a big win yesterday in Congress, getting his tax reform bill, out of committee. He may be on the precipice of a victory on a very important piece of legislation for him later this week. And instead, we and other people around the world are all sitting here trying to decipher what is going on in his mind and why he is doing these things. What are his motives? Why did he decide to tweet this today? Is it because this is coming up before the Supreme Court? I mean, maybe if you want to be rational, you could...
The travel ban.
The travel ban. You could say maybe that's why he was doing it. We know why he tweeted about NBC, because he doesn't like the mainstream media, including us. But we're on the verge of something that could be very dangerous in North Korea. And why is he doing this? Why is he inciting this kind of discussion and potentially even violence rather than trying to solve our problems?
Yeah, in the Council of American Islamic Relations, on American Islamic Relations, David, they said these tweets you would expect to see on virulent anti-Muslim hate sites, not on the Twitter feed of the President of the United States. So how damaging is this to U.S. relations with friendly Muslim-majority countries, whether in the Middle East or elsewhere?
I think it's very damaging. I think because the President, who finds himself again and again, puts himself in a position to act like a crank, like someone who's just ranting, it's not in the service of anything larger other than bigotry. I mean, there's not even a policy point behind it. Even the contrast to North Korea, where he talked about there'll be fire and fury, has now been tempered into, we'll take care of it, there's a sanctions protocol. There's actually some strategy in place. Again, this is just not in service of anything larger. This is a president who apparently doesn't listen to anybody around him, because we know some of the people around him would not in advance say, oh yeah, that's a good idea to forward that kind of thing. It's toxic. It's toxic to his standing in the country. It's toxic to America's standing in the rest of the world. And he is not thinking about what comes next. Clearly, he's not thinking down the road. And by the way, supporters of the president who would say, oh, you in the media, you'll harp on these things day in and day out, it just shows the patent unfairness. This is just scrutinizing the president's words on a daily basis.
Shannon, the White House press secretary, Sarah Sanders, she, as we heard in Jim's report, defended the president, saying it doesn't matter if those videos that he retweeted, the anti-Muslim videos, were real, because he's trying to address real threats. And as you know, it comes at the same time the New York Times is reporting he's once again reviving the birther claims, the birther issue involving former President Obama. He's raising questions about whether the Access Hollywood videotape was really authentic, or if the voice was not really his. How do you see all this?
Well, what's surprising, I thought, was all this talk of fake news in the same morning. And then here's the, well, who really knows if they're real or not? Maybe these are fake videos, but it's a real issue, amid all of this cry about quote-unquote fake news they seem to be so concerned about. And, I mean, I guess obviously the other point is, if you wanted to raise issues of concerns of border security, you could have done that in so many other ways than retweeting an unverified video from a militant, fringe British group. So, I mean, there's many, many odd ways you can dissect that statement. But, I mean, our analysis that we did at Bloomberg recently showed he's actually tweeting more. The president is tweeting more, not less. So to the point of, isn't Kelly supposed to be moderating him? Everybody in his entire universe has told him to stop tweeting, from his friends to his advisors to his supporters. It's unanimously agreed upon, but he's even tweeting more. It's not something he's going to stop. He apparently thinks it's working for him in some way, or it's almost like a compulsion, maybe. I know we've spent a lot of time psychoanalyzing these tweets, and I suppose he's the only one who knows.
It comes at a time, Gloria, when, as you point out, there is this case before the U.S. Supreme Court on the travel ban largely affecting Muslim-majority countries. And all of this anti-Muslim attitude sort of reminded me of what he said on CNN during the campaign. He told Anderson Cooper in March of last year this. Listen.
I think Islam hates us. There's something there that there's a tremendous hatred there. There's a tremendous hatred. We have to get to the bottom of it. There is an unbelievable hatred of us.
Those were pretty strong words, obviously. And it comes at a time when, a great friend of the United States, King Abdullah of Jordan, he's here in Washington right now. He's a Muslim. And if he sees what's going on, Jordan is a very close friend of the United States. I don't know why, but the president decided not to meet with King Abdullah while he was here in Washington. He did meet with Vice President Pence, Secretary of State Tillerson, and others. But you would think the president of the United States would want to meet with King Abdullah while he is in Washington, who's taken in 1 million Syrian refugees in Jordan and doing a lot of important work in the region.
And he's praised him. He's praised him the last time
we saw him. He's a great friend of the United States. But when I can only imagine what King Abdullah and others think when they hear words like this coming out of the president about their religion.
Not only when they hear words, but when the president retweets this video and you hear his press secretary do this doublespeak and say it doesn't matter, basically it doesn't matter whether it's authentic because the threat is real. I mean, she downplayed the questions about whether the video was accurate, whether the perpetrator was actually Muslim or not, downplayed all of that and preferred to go to the fact that the threat is real. How would you take it if you were Abdullah? I would say it was shocking, but I guess it isn't shocking anymore. But this kind of doublespeak.
Well, but that just shows. I mean, people around him are willing to be compromised by him as well, and they have to. They're just not serious people who are handling themselves that way. But I do think, well, some of this conversation focuses on the idea, well, there must be some consequence to all of this. Right. And we may yet see that. But Donald Trump as president feels vindicated by the fact that he has proved impervious to what has felled other public figures, other political figures, and he keeps moving on to this same beat because he feels like it's working for him, and he won't listen to anybody else. Whether it's taking on North Korea in the way he has, maybe he gets a breakthrough that previous administrations have not had. That soundbite to Anderson Cooper sounds like what it is, incredibly ignorant. But what he's actually saying, if you want to interpret him, is that radical Islam, post 1979 has developed this hatred for the West and on and on. But that's the level of nuance that he brings to these policy discussions, which is none at all. And there's a lot of people who say, right on, we should have a president who talks that way, even if it sounds as bigoted as that.
All right, everybody.